What's up guys? Today we are working on the Crash Z and we're gonna find out, can you straighten a frame at home? Wish me luck. Okay, so before we jump into actually trying to get this damaged fixed, we need to get this car back on the ground on all four wheels. The brakes are still taken apart. It's been a bit of a fiasco. If you guys didn't know, this is my tip to you. Apparently there is a difference in brake sizes from 03 to 05 and 06 and on. The base model brakes are different. This had Brembos. I bought some used rotors and I was gonna use my calipers from my Z. Well, this is a DE car, my car was a DE car, and the rotors are different. So it's been on stands for a little while, but we've got the parts to get the rear of the car back together. So we're gonna tackle that right now. I've also got a diff to throw back in this thing. If you've been paying attention, I robbed this thing of the diff to put into my car so that I can make it to an event. So I yanked that back out. So now we're gonna have it welded in this thing. So when it is fixed, it's ready to drift. So I'm gonna tie that up, get the diff back in, the rear brakes all attached, some wheels on the back of this thing. And then all we have to worry about is the fronts, and those rotors should be in a bit later today. So let's get to work. All right, we've got fresh brake rotors and pads on that. The diff is in. Let's get some wheels on this and at least get the back half of this car on the ground. There we go, we're on the ground. At least the back half. Like I said, we still gotta fix the front brakes. It looks so hilarious in the rear there because of the arches cut. This used to be a wide body Rocket Bunny style show car thing. It was on like 20-inch wheels. If you don't know the backstory of this car, I'll link to the first video when we very first got it, but it's getting close. Like I said, once we get the front button up and get this thing actually back on the ground, that's when we're gonna try and tackle the frame. All right, radiators off, AC condensers off. They were actually both ruined. So had to get them out of the way. Now we've got full access to the front of this thing. Now we just got to get the brakes on, get the car on the ground, and we'll start yanking on this thing and see if we can straighten it out. All right, car's on the ground, brakes are done, wheels are on, looks good. We are ready to get this thing out of here, get it tied up to a tree or my truck, and see if we can straighten this frame out. Also, check out the wall art. Had to save that. All right, enough talking. Let's get to work. So, the obvious we have to do here is reverse the crash that happened. Now looking at this, you can see the top part of the strut tower here was pushed in and kind of up. So we're gonna try to reverse that. I think I'm gonna weld a couple of like tabs or chain links or something on here, try to pull it forward and down. Hopefully that'll give us what we need to free up this brake master cylinder and get this in line enough to get this thing actually aligned.
This is Josh here. It's Monday and I don't think it's a holiday, but we're getting work done.
All right, so we got a chain welded right to the strut tower there. That's where I want to pull from. We've got this angled a little bit down. This is a 4,000-pound hand winch or come along. Start cranking on that and see if we get anywhere. Well, we got a little bit of movement with that first attempt there, but it may not have been evident in the time lapse, but the car actually started moving. Now, I chalked the wheels, but we are on a kind of slick garage surface, and even with the parking brake on and the car in gear, it was still kind of just like sliding just a little bit whenever I tried to put a ton of force on it. So I think we got it to move kind of like the easy bit, and then once it was requiring some real force is when it started to move the car. So we're gonna move things around. I'm gonna get the back end tied up to a tree, and then the front end tied up to my truck, and then we can winch on it and it shouldn't move at that point. So I think we'll be good, but that's gonna take some moving around, so catch up with you guys in just a minute.
That's moving it. Maybe it's not. Back. Okay.
Kind of figured that one was coming. You could see the weld just starting to separate. We were putting a ton of force on it. I had this thing in 4 low in first gear. For a while there, we just had Josh in there with his foot on the brake while I was working the winch. And then I decided just to kind of drive the truck back and forth. And we're making small progress. That's really all this is gonna be. There's not gonna be a big like, okay, it's fixed. It's gonna be a lot of back and forth, really little tiny increments of movement. And I think we're headed in the right direction.
Nice. I think that did something. Yeah, buddy. Come look at it. 0 to 5 feet time. Gotta go a little harder than that. Okay. Go ahead, give her a yes. All right.
We may have done a little more damage than we intended. So a little bit of damage was definitely done there. I actually ended up just cutting that whole piece off. So now we've got full access to the inside. I don't know if you could tell on video, but it is actually moving. We're actually making progress here. It's a little more destructive than, like, let's say if a frame shop worked on this. But again, I'm trying to show you guys that this can be done at home. We'll see how clean it can end up, but it's getting there, you know?
Okay.
That's a first. That just broke the chain right in half. The weld's perfect on the car. I don't actually know if it moved much, but whoops.
Okay, that moved it. Yeah.
All right, so that time the chain actually snapped in the middle, so we're just gonna hook it back up and try again. It was moving a good amount. Hopefully the camera caught that. Let's give that another shot.
Okay, that moved something. Okay, that was great. Snap pinch. Oh. Okay. Bro, I got some great footage.
Oh, that's actually moved a bit.
Yeah, it did. Dude.
Shout out to this Harbor Freight come along thing. We use this because the strap we had couldn't fit in this chain that I brought. It didn't break, it still works perfectly. I really thought this was gonna snap. The chain I brought broke, like almost every time. I'd rather have that break than this, though, I'll tell you what. At the end of the day, we actually made quite a lot of progress. This thing looks pretty good, despite like half of it being torn off, but we'll cover that in a bit. Overall, though, I think we pretty much reversed most of the damage, and I think this is gonna be a workable front end now. So you can tell just by looking at this shot, I think I have a before somewhere in here. If not, I'll put it right here. It's way straighter. Obviously it's still crinkled, it's not perfect, but it actually is oriented in the correct direction now. Like I said, it did tear a bit of the front end off, but we're gonna be doing a tube front anyway, so I think this will end up plated like that. We'll run a tube across here and then, you know, obviously make the front section there. But overall, pretty successful. I think this is gonna work. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. Back in the garage, the head-on shot, you can see it looks way more square and even. Before, this thing was super lopsided. Now, can you fix a bent frame at home? Well, it depends on how bent the frame is and what stuff you have access to. I used a ratchet strap, a hand winch or come along, my Tahoe, and this big tree. Oh, and I guess a welder and a chain. The welder did come in handy. If I didn't have a welder, this wouldn't have worked. The main reason for that, it may seem like simple if you just want to like put a hook in something or, you know, wrap something around another thing. I actually tried putting a hook in one of these things and just put a little bit of force on it, and let me show you what happens. So this hole over here, this is the not crash side. This hole it used to be there, and I put a hook in this and just put a little bit of force on it with a hand winch, and it immediately just started tearing it like this. The hook was just cutting through it. That's because these cars are just built with sheet metal stacked on top of each other, and sheet metal's not that strong, especially if you're cutting through it with a hook. So welding something onto it and then pulling from that as opposed to the actual sheet metal makes it a lot stronger and, I would say, safer, but I don't know if what we were doing was totally safe. But at the end of the day, it worked. Again, this is definitely not perfect, but this is going to be a drift car. Like I said, it is going to get a tube front. I'm really excited to figure that out. I've never done any fabrication on that level before. So make sure you're subscribed, because that's going to be a fun learning experience. I know some of you guys were interested in seeing that. I figure once we throw a set of coilovers on there, I really should be able to adjust any variances out. I really don't think there's going to be that big of a variance though. We'll have to maybe put some toe plates on this and see if I can dial in alignment and then actually take it for a real drive. As of right now, it's driving pretty good. So obviously we've got a bunch of cleanup work to do on this thing before I can actually start adding to it with a new tube front and things like that. So that'll end up being in another video. I'll probably do some of the cleanup work off camera, and it'll be a little bit until we actually get started on the tube front, because I have to buy a couple new tools like a tubing bender and maybe a better welder. But anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying the rebuild of this car. It's definitely been a fun project to take on. I've always wanted to do something in this realm of taking a crashed car and fixing it, and I think this was kind of the perfect car to get my feet wet with, considering I know Z's, I know how to set them up, and well, the damage really wasn't that bad. And I think between a custom tube front end and some adjustable coilovers, we'll be able to get this thing sitting right, driving right, and looking good. But that's going to be a wrap for now. Like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. And of course, catch you in the next one.